April's been a slower reading month for me, but I still have plenty of updates to show you in my reading journal, and we still need to set up my May spreads together as well. Hi, my name's Erin. Thank you for clicking on my video. If you saw my video from last week, you'll know that I put a lot of planning and time and effort into my bullet journal layouts, but with my reading journal, I'm actually much more laid back. I kind of just jump in. I don't think about things before I do them. I just do them. At the end of my last reading journal video, which fell just before the end of March, the beginning of April, you guys said you'd like to see the reading stats in the beginning of this video, so that's where we're doing it. These are actually my reading stats for March. We did some interim ones in that video, so these are the final ones. I ended up with 9 books read, 3,599 pages. The genres didn't change that much, so I won't go through those again for you, but the average rating ended up being 3.88 stars, so I'm just going to colour in the star rating here to match that, and I'll write it next to it too since the decimal number is not that obvious from the star colouring in job. I ended up at 44% audiobooks and 56% ebooks, which is pretty standard for me. And we need to bring some other trackers up to date as well before we can jump into April things in the reading journal. So let's go all the way back to the start of the book. This is my overall reading log for the year where I just list out all of the books that I've read. I have some options for other versions of this in a video if you'd like to see that, but this is the really easy standard way that I like to do it for myself. I literally just write out the title of the book. If it's part of a series, I'll write which number of the series it is and the author's name, and that's all the information that I need on this page, because everything else that I want to track, I have spaces for somewhere else. Flawless by Elsie was the last one that I squeezed into March, and the books that come after that from number 29 onwards are books that I read in April, but we'll talk about those a little bit more later on, so stay tuned. I've been color coding my goal tracker to match the theme that I set up for each month, so I'm doing pink for the month of March. I've just got to fill out those last couple on the goal tracker there in pink before we can switch to brown, which I'm using for the month of April, although I realized I'd used the same brown that I used in January and I wanted them to look quite different, so it's a bit of a shame because I did put the first line down in the wrong brown first, but it's not the end of the world. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to add another space here for the Chestnut Springs series on my series tracker since I really enjoyed Flawless and the series is a favourite of my friend Rachel, so I'm going to read them all so that we can froth about them together because that's so much fun. Isn't it just the best when you have a friend who also loves to read and you recommend things to each other and then they love the things that you love? So Rachel's been reading the Love Light series by B.K. Borison on my recommendation, and I've been reading the Chestnut Springs series on Rachel's recommendation, and we both like the same things and it's just really nice. Well, mostly. We have a few differences, but mostly we like the same things. Also, this series tracker is starting to look pretty packed, so I'm going to have to not start any new series anytime soon. Or I'll just set up a new series tracker later in the book. That's okay too. Since I have finished Flawless, we need to head forward to that page and add that in. I'd left 2 pages free before the beginning of the April pages, so I'm just going to fill those both in with Flawless because I really enjoyed it. I think it can deal with a double page spread. And I got some stickers recently that I think will be a really good fit and remembered some stickers that I thought would work really well for it too, so I think I'm just going to have a fun time decorating this page and making it really cute. Flawless is a cowboy romance. It's set in country parts of Canada. Just FYI, I won't give you any spoilers in the voiceover, but when I write my review on the page a little bit later on, there will likely be spoilers in that for all of the books that I talk about in this video. So don't read those unless you are okay with knowing what happens. But I won't spoil anything for you out loud with my voice, so you don't have to put me on mute or anything unless you want to. That's fine if you do. Yeah, so cowboy romance. The male main character, this is a dual point of view book. And the male main character, Rhett, is a bull rider. And it was the weirdest timing because just after I finished this book, my partner and I went to kind of a country fair in Sydney in Australia. And there was bronco riding and bull riding as part of the evening entertainment. And it was so much harder to watch because of having read this book. It was, oh man, it looks really violent. None of the Australian cowboys are as good apparently as the ones in this book because they couldn't even stay on for the time it takes to have anything qualify. So kind of funny. I am a sucker for a great romance story. I am a wedding photographer outside of this whole YouTube thing, and I think love stories are just the thing that speaks to me the most in the world, so this was a really fun one. I'm trying to match up the colours of the cover with kind of just the vibes of the book, so there's lots of pink and some flowers going on in the cover, and I've tried to match the lettering a little bit with some of my favourite pink tombos. I'll try to link to as much of what I'm using as I can, but when it comes to the reading journal videos, I tend to use a lot of stuff, so I can only link to so much of it in the description before I run out of character spaces, because that's limited for YouTube video descriptions. So if I haven't linked to something and you want to know where I got it, just ask, and I will do my best to let you know. The washi tape I used was from Journal Say. I've had it for a little while, and it's got this lovely kind of garden, grass, field sort of a vibe going on, so I thought that could be good to tie into the country setting. I layered it up with some pink chevron washi tape that I've had for such a long time I don't think I can even remember where I got it. It might have been Tokyo Hands in Japan, like in 2017. This fantastic sticker sheet is the Honky Tonk Heartbreak sheet from Lace & Whimsy Studio, and this sticker book I got recently from Journal Say. I don't usually do double page spreads for reviews in this journal because I'm using a B5 journal from Archer and Olive and it's got big pages anyway. A single page is usually enough, but because I'd allowed 2 spaces here in case I finished another book before the end of the month, I figured I'd just use them both up and just start fresh when we move on into April. So I think it's okay to use some bigger decorations in this circumstance because then I don't feel like I have all this pressure to write more stuff than I normally would. It's probably also worth mentioning that these reading journal videos are something that I set up in kind of a few different sessions over the course of a month. So I'm going to be wearing different clothes and different jewelry and the light will look different and I'll be using different pens just depending on how things go. This blue fountain pen that I'm using here, I really like. I got it from Stationery Pal a while ago. It was running out of ink in the cartridge that was in it and I thought I had spare cartridges somewhere but I can't find them, so I'm going to have to abandon this pen kind of halfway through the video. That's a shame, but I will get some more ink for it at some point soon, I'm sure. I'm not quite far enough into the world of fountain pens yet to know how to put ink in it in any other way, or even if it's the kind of pen that can do that, so we're just going to have to stick with it here. I make my core pile rating system stickers myself, and I'll have a link in the description to a sheet of those that you can print out in case you'd also like to make some. This system was devised by the wonderful G of the Book Roast, who you can follow here on YouTube if you'd like to, and the letters stand for character, atmosphere, writing, plot, intrigue, logic, and enjoyment. You give each of those categories a rating out of 10, and then you divide that final number that you get by 7, and that gives it a core pile rating score, which then gives you your star rating for the book. I've been keeping track of what my top rated book is for each month, and I'm pitting them against each other in this book bracket over here. My top read for the month of March was The Wake Up Call by Beth O'Leary, which is then going up against The Serpent and the Wings of Night, but The Wake Up Call has a slightly lower core pile rating than The Serpent and the Wings of Night. So The Serpent and the Wings of Night is going to move forward into the next round in the book bracket, and we'll have to see later on which book is going to make it in for April. We're almost done with updating the March tracker things. I just need to update my progress calendar here to finish out this last week. I went away to go to that country fair at the end of March, at the beginning of April, so I wasn't home to update this stuff. So that's why it's all kind of falling in here, and also just the way the dates lined up because I post on Fridays. I have to mention The Name of the Wind. I DNF'd this book. I'm sorry, I know so many people love it, but it was just so long. I think I got 8% in, which was like 4 hours. It was supposed to be a book club book, but I couldn't do it. Normally I'd push through, but 28 hours of audiobook of a book I wasn't enjoying was too much to push through. So sorry friends, not finishing that one. I decided to use the space underneath the progress calendar to put a little moment for the wake up call, since it is the book of the month for the month of March. So I'm just printing out a slightly weirdly sized cover so it will fit in this frame. I print all of my book covers with my HP Sprocket mini printer, which I bought secondhand on Facebook Marketplace. It's pretty good. Some people find they're not so good for them. They seem to be kind of hit and miss, but mine is good. I have a short about how I print those book covers to make them all the same size like the ones on the left page, so I'll link to that in the description in case you want to see that and learn how I like to do it. The way I do the slightly weirdly sized ones that have white around them, like the Wake Up Calls one just then, is that I pull it into Canva. I measured the size of the paper, and then I pulled it into Canva and kind of eyeballed how much of that space should be white. And it wasn't perfect by any means. Some of the text at the bottom is cut off, but it's fine. It'll do. We're finally into the April pages now, so I've just grabbed out a bunch of pens that look nice with the color scheme, and I'm going to update my progress tracker. You can tell where we are in the month by where my progress tracker things end. I got off to a really slow start in April for reading because I was away traveling with my partner, and that was fantastic. It just meant that there wasn't as much time for reading as I have in my day-to-day life. Totally fine. It was fun. I don't regret a thing. I also just had a really busy month with my work and with my dance group, so there just, again, wasn't as much time for reading, especially ebooks. I didn't get to read anywhere near as much on ebook as I did last month. Ebook and audiobook are really my only formats. I don't really read a lot of physical books. I just don't enjoy the experience as much as reading on my Kindle, and also library access, so much easier. I did pick up Shadow of Night, which is the second book in the, what are they called? All Souls series, the Discovery of Witches series. I had that on ebook from ages ago, and I'd read half of it, and I thought, well, it'll be faster for me to finish a book I've already read half of than to start a new one, right? Wrong. It has been on the go all month. I started it the previous month in March, and I haven't finished it, and it is now May as I'm recording this audio. So there you go, that didn't quite work out. We're going to jump into our first actual review spread here, and this one is for The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic, which was a book I'd had in my list of books I might like to read for basically ever since it came out, maybe even a little before. Small town romance, paranormal romance vibes. The way it was described is kind of like Gilmore Girls, but practical magic had a child sort of a thing. It was a little underwhelming. I wish they hadn't given it that description because that set my hopes maybe a little too high. The main character is a witch. This one is a single point of view. And if you like book tropes, then ones to note here are second chance romance. Maybe that's about it, actually. Small town. Yeah. This one kind of really confused me though, because the main character is very like, magic is the most important thing to me. My magic is a huge part of me. It's very important. But then somebody calls her a witch later on in the book and she's so vehemently against it. She's like, no, I'm not a witch. Witches are bad. And I was like, oh, what? Okay. I did enjoy though, the narrator of the audiobook was a narrator that I follow on TikTok, and it took me the first couple of chapters to place her voice, but once I did I was like, oh, it's you! Hi! She's really good. Her name is Laura Horowitz, I think. I'm using a metallic paint pen to letter the heading for this book here, and kind of funny that it's taking up so much room. It's probably for the best. I didn't kind of anticipate that the lettering would have to end up this big, but I don't have that much to say about the book, so maybe it's okay that I've only got half the page left at this point. The washi tape I used at the top and bottom of the page is from the washi tape shop, but it's from their Harmony set, which I don't think they sell anymore, unfortunately. It's a really lovely set. I'm sorry about that. And the main character, who is a witch, whether she likes it or not, is really into gardening as well. She's very into earth magic things, so it felt like having flowers on there was a good idea. You know, it's funny, I put a lot more effort into the spreads of books that I really enjoy, and I get a bit with the books that I don't. Although, having said that, the next one we set up together is a book that I really, really loved, but I didn't have the right stationery for, and I didn't have time to buy anything before I set it up, so maybe that doesn't always apply, because it's kind of a lackluster spread, well, page, not spread, just a single page, but it's for a book that I really, really loved, so there we go. The core pile rating for this one is coming out at 4.86, which makes it a 3-star book. So I'll just colour in the star rating here. I love my star rating stamp, by the way. It makes this so much easier. You can also get stickers and stuff for this kind of thing too. And back on the overall kind of dashboard page for the month, we've got to colour in 3 stars there too. I also like to write the final core pile rating on this page too, so that I can see them all in one place, because that makes it easier to pick the favourite at the end of the month when they're all in the same page. Sourdough by Robin Sloan was the Page Majors book club book for the month of April. If you're not familiar with the Page Majors, it is my very own book club that I run through the channel membership program here on YouTube. We have a Discord server where we talk about journals and stuff with people who are in the Jubilant Journals tier as well, but the Page Majors level members have access to the book club and we read a different book each month. This one was chosen by Deb, one of my wonderful channel members, and it is set in San Francisco about a person who works in the tech industry but ends up picking up a baking hobby on the side that just opens up a world of possibilities to her that she'd never even dreamed of. This is a book I would have never picked up on my own, but because it was a book club book, I gave it a go and I ended up loving it, and I think a lot of my channel members had a very similar experience. At the end of each month, we have a little call on Discord to discuss the book, and on the right page there you can see the highlighted sections. I come up with some specific questions so we have like a targeted discussion and we can talk about things that we liked and things that we didn't like and things that we theorize about all together. It's so much fun. We have started on a new book for the month of May, so if you're interested in that, you can hit the join link down below. I'll talk about it a bit later on as well. But yeah, if you're interested in more information, you can hit the join link that's next to my channel name down below on the watch page, or there's a link in the description as well, and you can find out some more information about the Page Majors. And because this was a book about bread, I had to put some bread stickers on here. I had this perfect sheet from one of the sticky advent calendars. I'll link to that if I can. Really high ratings across the board here for all of the categories of the core pile system. It's not going to sneak in as my #1 rated book for the month, but it's pretty high up there. 8.14 on the core pile scale, which means it's going to be a 4.5-star book from me. Very high praise is all you'll hear from me about this book. I loved it. Flipping forward now to our next available blank page. This is the one I was talking about that I loved, and then I am not that stoked with my page for it, but I had to work with what I had. I didn't have chess things. This is Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. Ali Hazelwood has been an interesting author journey for me because I read The Love Hypothesis and I loved it. And then I read Love on the Brain and I was like, this is the exact same book. And then my opinion kind of dropped a bit. And then I read, what's the third one called? Love Theoretically. And I was like, look, she just has a formula and I respect that she's sticking to it. And she does it really, really well. So back into high regard, in my opinion. This one is a young adult novel, which is a bit different to her previous ones, and it's about a teenage girl. She finds herself in the uncomfortable position of having to be the breadwinner for her family because her mother has some disabilities and her father has passed away. And in a pinch, she ends up playing as a professional chess player to provide for her family, but also to follow her passion, and comes across a lovely, handsome, very attractive chess-playing gentleman who is the world champion and her rival, but also her friend. I loved this book. I was so very invested from the very beginning. I was just, this is really my kind of book, I guess. Like any Ali Hazelwood book, it's really funny, but it's also so compassionate. It's emotional. It's a little bit sexy. It's really believable. And there's always that science and technology angle that Ali Hazelwood has for the heroines in all of her books, which I love. But I don't have any chess stationery, turns out. So I've ended up just trying to match things as much as I can to the book cover, which meant some pink and peachy kind of coloured washi tapes in a strip along the side. And I tried to copy the lettering on the front a little bit. I tried to use letter stamps, but it didn't really work with the pen. The silicone ones don't work so well with the pens, I find, unless they're paint markers, which I didn't use a paint marker, so joke's on me. I don't think it looks bad by any means, but I do feel like compared to some of my other pages, it just doesn't excite me the way that the book did. Sometimes I'm like, I need to do the book better justice than this. I don't know. There's no logic there, but whatever. It's fine. We've got super high core pile scores across the board, which is going to give this one a rating of 8.43, which is going to make it 4.5 stars. Again, I need to work out where the quarter distributions are for the system so I can know where the quarter stars are supposed to go, because this one might be 4 3/4. I'm not sure, but we'll put 4.5 for now anyway, because the number will tell us when it's higher than another book, so it's okay. Got to make sure Sourdough's score and star rating are on here as well, because I missed that just before, so we'll update that while we're here too. Then we'll move on to the next book that I completed for the month, which is one of the Bridgerton series. I kind of didn't really set out to read these, but the first one was available for like an instant borrow through my library earlier in the year, so I jumped on that because I was like, I don't have to wait for this, and it was okay. And this is the second one, so this is the second season of Bridgerton if you've seen the TV series with Kate and Anthony. It was really interesting to read it after having seen the series because the differences between them were really obvious. In the book, you do not have any South Asian ladies. They are all just British ladies. Not a big deal, but I actually think the changes that they made for the TV series made it better. So it's not often that you find an adaptation where you think the screen version is better than the book version, but this is a case of that. So that was very interesting. I'm going with, look, probably not period appropriate stickers for this, but it's fine. It's just my reading journal. It doesn't have to be historically accurate. I've got some William Morris washi tape, and I've got some stickers that are from another similar sticker book to the one that I used on the Flawless spread earlier. They're just pretty. Tea set, you know, there was a lot of tea drinking going on in the Regency time. There's a lot of tea drinking going on in my house right now. Something I'm really curious about, if you get into books after a TV adaptation has come out, how do you feel about the TV or movie tie-in book covers? Because I know they probably go a long ways as to convincing people to buy the book because of the recognition, but I personally hate them. So I have gone out in search of a pre-Bridgerton TV series Shondaland cover and deliberately picked one to print that is like the old version of the Viscount Who Loved Me. Do you also hate that, or do you like them? I'm really curious in the points of view. There is no right or wrong here. It's just the way that we feel is the way that we feel, and it's all valid. My My final core pile score for this one is 6.57, which means it's going to come in at 3.5 stars, which is kind of not bad. I'm okay with 3.5 stars. Not my favorite kind of level of book, but I did enjoy it, so that's where it's falling here. Going to update that back on the... I'm going to go with dashboard. I've decided I think I want to call this a dashboard spread, but not so much that I'm going to retroactively add that title on there, or for the coming month either. I'm just going to call it that in my head and in the voiceover, but not actually write it down anywhere. That's fine. Every month I have a Rachel recommendation or a Rachel buddy read, and this is the Rachel buddy read for this month. This one is Powerless by Lauren Roberts, and it also came recommended from my friend Holly too, so thank you Holly for that. This one is is it romantasy? Is it just fantasy? It has the slowest slow burn that ever burned. Wow, it was getting frustrating, and I love a slow burn, so I was like, what is going on? Let's talk tropes. We've got deadly trials in this one, which is not a favorite trope of mine. It's not something that I avoid or anything, but I feel like there's only so many ways that you can do it, and you could definitely feel that in this one. In our buddy read, we coordinated it on Storygraph, and Rachel and I were comparing the trials in this book to obvious boy wizard things, but also the Korean TV show Running Man. Rachel read this one on ebook and I think potentially enjoyed it a bit more than I did. I read it on audiobook. I wish I hadn't. I actually love reading audiobooks. I think they're a fantastic way to consume your books, but when you get narrators that you don't vibe with, it can make it a lot harder. It can affect the experience. And the guy, particularly, who did the male main character in this book, sounded like a teenage boy reading his homework. Like he really wasn't trying, or at least that's how it felt to me. I'm sure there are people who enjoyed it. That was just my interpretation. I think I will probably switch to ebook for the following books in the series. Isn't it funny? Because there are other books where I feel like it works the other way, like the Throne of Glass series. When I tried to read them on ebook, I wanted to claw my eyes out because I was so bored, but then I switched to the audiobook and I was like, actually, these are okay. So go figure. I still enjoyed Powerless. I wouldn't say that it wasn't worth reading, even though I didn't vibe with particularly that narrator. I didn't think the lady narrator was especially great, but she wasn't making me as grumpy as the other guy did, so it's fine. I'm trying to just imitate the lettering here. I'm using paint pens over the top of some just black printer paper that I picked up at Officeworks, but you couldn't really see it as vividly as I'd thought with the matte paint pen, so I've switched to some metallic ones to give it a bit of extra pop. Just some purple here to match the cover, and then for some extra visibility I used a silver as a little drop shadow, and then I feel like you can actually read it, so that's helpful. I'm not certain. Over time I think the covers will fade, so it's helpful for me to have the book title on the page as well, but also sometimes the covers are really small and I am 36 years old and my eyesight is not what it used to be, so it helps me to have a large version of the title written down as well as the book cover. It might feel like a double up to some people, but I have my reasons, I promise you. Just like last month, because I'm setting this up in a few different sessions, something that I really like to do is take my journal with me to sticker hangs and fill out some of my reading journal stuff while I'm there, which is why we're now on a weird angle and on a different day and with different jewelry, because this is not my house, this is Stash World, a wonderful stationery store in Fortitude Valley, and I was hanging out with Jacqueline and I was hanging out with Jessie and we were journaling together and it was so much fun. If you are a solo lone wolf journaler like I used to be, definitely recommend looking up if there are meetup groups for stationery in your city or town, or starting one if you are so inclined, because this is the most fun. We literally just get together twice a month now. We've got a daytime sticker hangs and a nighttime sticker hangs that we can attend. It's free. You just show up, you bring your stuff, you hang out, you journal together, and it's the best time and it's so wholesome. So I want this experience for everyone because I love it and I look forward to it so much. It's just the most wonderful community. We've finished up Powerless now. We're going to turn the page and we're going to set up another Bridgerton page, because I was trying to get through the books to be like ahead of where the series is, because I want to read Penelope and Colin's book before I watch the series, which is coming out really soon. So I was trying to hustle here. I thought I was getting ready for the new season that's about to come out, but actually I didn't realize that they skipped a book in the series. So book 3 doesn't have a season and book 4 is the one that's coming out soon. So I ended up, that's fine, like I'm not mad about it, but this was Benedict's book, which, excuse me, it was great. Why does he not get a season? I think they might be setting up his character to be different in the show to in the book, so maybe that's got something to do with it, but this was my favorite of the Bridgerton books so far, so I was a little bit sad that it doesn't get a season of its own. That's fine. This one is an offer from a gentleman. As I mentioned, it's about Benedict and his lady love, who I don't think she appeared in the books before this one. I think she's fresh. I think what I really enjoyed about this one is that the story is completely different to the first two. I feel like the first two Bridgerton books are kind of almost the same plotline, recycled, but different character names. They just still revolve around members of the same family. And I do think it's really cute that the Bridgertons all have like names in alphabetical order. So it's Anthony, Benedict, Colin, Daphne, so on and so forth. Like, I don't know why, I think that's a really cute detail, but it is. It's a bit tricky to see on this angle, but I accidentally lettered an offer from a gentleman, so I missed the L or the T, one of the longer ones, and I put men instead of man. Anyway, I had some sticker paper in the back of my journal, so I just covered it and rewrote that part, and all's well that ends well. The fact that I'm reading 2 Bridgerton books in a month and talking about the series so much probably makes it sound like I'm a massive Bridgerton fan. I'm an average Bridgerton fan. I do enjoy the series and I think the books are pretty fun, but the reason I'm mostly invested in this upcoming season is because they were filming it when I was visiting Bath in England last year, and I couldn't actually go to the museum at the Royal Crescent because it was closed to be used as a filming location, so I'm just looking forward to looking for places that I recognize. I know it's in the other seasons too, but I watched them before I'd been there, so, you know, it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I also already have the next book reserved through the library, so I had printed the covers for that, and then I stuck the wrong one down on my dashboard. Don't worry, I will realize it. Let's peel it off and put the correct one in its place so that this is correct. This was towards the end of sticker hangs, and I think I was just not paying attention to what I was doing. Anyway, we're home again now, and I had forgotten to change my camera settings to what I usually use them for. I'd used the camera for something else in the meantime, so sorry about that moment there where things went a little bit wild and chaotic. We're back now, and I'm using my partner's fountain pen because mine ran out. And I really like using fountain pens lately, they feel nice. The way my Corpile scores worked out for this one is actually really interesting. They averaged out to eventually 49, which gives me a whole number, which is 7 when divided by 7, which is the first time that's happened, which makes this a 4-star read, which is the highest for me of the Bridgerton books so far. And I am still planning on reading the next one before I watch the series. If that means I have to wait a bit to watch the series, then so be it, it's fine. I am kind of busy lately anyway, so that's probably for the best. Something I forgot to do was add dates read to a lot of my spreads, so I'm just jumping back in and adding those retroactively to make sure that I have that data written down somewhere. I have it in Goodreads and Storygraph anyway because I track my reading on both of those apps, but it's easier if I have it written in the book to refer to when I go back to fill out this page, the progress bar thing, because that means I don't have to like dig through the menus of Goodreads, you know, sometimes it's a bit clunky. Also, Shadow of Night, I wanted to mark that I had got up to 92% of it here because I didn't finish the book, but I was reading it for the entire month, so I thought it should probably have something represented. It's funny actually, that one, because I bought it a while ago, I got the 3-book compendium version on ebook, and it's been really hard for me to work out my progress of the second book because the percentage my Kindle shows me is my percentage of the way through the entire trilogy. So I'm also not very good at math, so I've actually been asking ChatGPT to calculate it for me, and that's how I've been getting my percentages, and it's worked kind of well. It's a weird system, but there you go. Let's bring the monthly trackers up to date, and then we'll go back to the beginning of the book and we'll bring the yearly trackers up to date as well. So let's go all the way back to the beginning and add the titles of the books on here so that the overall books read tracker has everything that I have actually completed. And having the number next to each book here, even though it's maybe a little redundant with the next page, it helps me keep track of what I'm up to for the goal page as well. So I find it really helpful. I don't trust this ink to be dry for me to turn the page though, so I'm going to put a bit of paper down there and just let it blot, which I think seems like a good idea. Let's fill in the goal page as well. We'll get it up to date with that nice light brown marker. I should have coloured in the A down the bottom so that it's representing that that colour is for April, but I forgot, so I will do that at some point off camera. We also still have to set up my May spreads, and I didn't assign a colour for them here either, but I know what it should be, so maybe we'll do that one in the next video because we'll be colouring in some of these boxes in that colour together, so we can do that bit together. We can also colour in another Bridgerton book on the series tracker because that means I've read 3 now. Also, I can't find for the life of me where I set up the Page Majors page there, but our book club book for May is The Cat Who Caught a Killer by L.T. Shearer, so if you want to read that with us, don't forget to hit the join link down below. Let's do some stats for April. I read 6 books, which is a little below average for me, but I'm not mad about it at all, to be honest. It was just what I could do with the time that I had. I also was pretty close to finishing 2 other books, but, I didn't finish them, so they don't make it into those stats. The total pages read was 2,598, and my average rating was 3.88 stars, which is pretty good. Mostly romance and YA, and a little bit of historical and fantasy this month as well. Truly nothing out of the ordinary there. As far as formats, this one's a funny one, because I did read some ebooks, I just didn't complete them. So the stats say that I read 100% audiobooks this month. Also, my standout book was Check and Mate by Hazelwood, so that's going to go in this little frame here, but for now I'm just going to write it in pencil and print it out in a bit. I do just want to mention really quickly, if you're somebody who doesn't read audiobooks, and it's okay, honestly, if you don't consider audiobooks to be reading, but I do, I don't need you to leave a comment to tell me that you don't think it is, because it's not going to change the way I do my reading journal. Just letting you know. Anyway, back on the book bracket, and the Wake Up Call has lost out to Check and Mate. It is making it through to the next round. Good job, Hazelwood. I've got 1 page left over that I'm leaving blank because I think that's where I'm going to put my spread for the True Love Experiment, which I'm reading right now by Christina Lauren. And we're going to jump into my May spreads. This is actually the first time that I've ever set up my reading journal spreads for the coming month. Once that month has already started. I did this on the 1st of May, and it was a bit strange. It's out of order for me. I usually am doing this halfway through the previous month and trying to guess how many pages I'm going to need, so that was a luxury in some ways, but also because the month had already started and I don't have a great deal of free time on my hands right now, I wanted to do something really minimal, and this is quite inspired by Harmony of Joy Letters on Instagram. She does beautiful minimal layouts all the time with transfer stickers. So I'm going to try that out myself. Maybe a little less minimal than hers, but still somewhat minimal and really pretty, I think, in the end. So the way these stickers work, you cut them off the sheet, they're not all like separate, and you peel off the backing and then rub over the top of the sticker, and it transfers the design onto the page so that it kind of just becomes one with the paper. There's no shiny kind of PET tape texture or anything. It just looks like it was printed on there. It's amazing. I got these transfer stickers from Journal Say in my most recent collab with them. And actually, I also got this green spatula thing from Journal Say too. It came as part of a set with a glue tape and some tweezers and one of those little craft knives. And at the time I was like, I am never going to use this spatula thing, and I actually use it all the time, so there you go. I'm using a grey, the warm grey Tombow N79 as a border and also for my lettering in this one. And I'm just spacing the stickers kind of equidistantly, sort of, somewhat, but also loosely around this space, and then drawing in the box with the marker. And I think it looks really quite pretty and calming, and May is the end of autumn for us here in the Southern Hemisphere, so I guess it's kind of appropriate that it's a slightly wintry looking kind of a thing. I don't know, I just didn't have time to do anything really involved, and so I thought let's do something less involved but still very pretty, and it was quick and easy, and I love that. So May, cover on the left page and reading stats on the right page, just the same reading stats as last month. Books completed, pages read, average rating, format, and genres are the ones that I like to always put on my reading stats page. And in case you're curious, I get all my reading stats from the Storygraph app. I just make sure I log all of my reading throughout the month and update my star ratings as I work out what they are based on the spreads. And then it spits out all of the stats for me at the end of the month, and I love it. So that's the first one done. Let's move on to the second spread. This one's the dashboard that I've been talking about, but I'm trying out a different layout this time because I'm going to be joining in Jashi Corinne's Goober Readathon, and so I wanted to have a space to put the book bingo for that. I've moved my calendar where I track the progress of the books, like the ones we've been setting up together in this video. I've moved it so it splits across the page, kind of like the way I would do it in my bullet journal, and I'm doing this other smaller little 5x5 grid in the bottom corner here that's going to be the Goober Readathon info. We'll come back to that in a sec. Over here I'm putting my maybe next heading, although I'm thinking it would have made more sense for this one just for it to be books read or reading now or something like that, rather than maybe next, because it's not really a TBR. I've kind of started on some of these books already and others I have on hold through the library, so the odds are good that I will read them. Maybe next is probably not the appropriate title here, but it's fine, it's on the page now. I'm just copying the Goober Readathon goals for this book bingo system over here, straight off the image that Jess has in her Instagram stories highlight for the Goober Readathon. So if you want to find it also, you can find it there on Jess's Instagram. Also, if you aren't following Jashi Corinne here on YouTube, she also does amazing reading journal and other general journaling content, and you should be following her. I recommend her very much. Can you believe we've made it to 33.5 minutes into this video and I've only just pulled out the letter stamps? That's probably some kind of a record, but here we are. We're going to add some letter stamps along the top of the calendar so that each day is obvious. I probably don't really need them at this point because I always start my calendars on a Monday, but I'm doing them anyway because I like how they look. Something that's occurring to me just now is that I'm only using one pen for this theme part of the setup, which is going to make it really hard to choose the pens that I use for my progress tracking here. I'm going to have to try and pull some colors out of the stickers, I guess, to make that work, but that's a later me problem. Maybe we'll just do it in shades of grey, I don't know. Also, I am still using the transfer stickers here. I just sped up the process a bit so that you didn't have to watch me take ages to kind of scrape these onto the page. It was pretty quick to set up still, but you know, I feel like that's kind of boring to watch somebody just like scraping things onto their journal all the time, so I edited those parts out. Adding books on here that I'm going to hopefully read in the next month. Caravala's jumping on there again because I didn't end up starting it last month. I messed up my library hold and accidentally sent it to the wrong Amazon account, so it didn't get to my Kindle, so I'm trying that again. I had to wait in the queue again through the library, but it's my turn again, so it's all fine. The Cat Who Caught a Killer is the Page Mage's book, chosen by Pam, so that's definitely going to be read at some point. And then Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, which is Bridgerton number 4, which is the one that the season is coming out for soon. The True Love Experiment, honestly at this point I'm about halfway through already, so that one will probably be the first book that I finish. And now we move on to the next spread, which is going to be the last one we set up together, and that is for The Cat Who Caught a Killer. This one is a mystery revolving around a really smart cat, from what I can tell. I haven't read it yet, so I will report back with my findings. I'm not usually a mystery girly, so it's going to be interesting to read this one. I always think it's very interesting when I'm choosing a book for a book club. I tend to pick something that I haven't read before so that we can all have the same first time reading experience, and I believe Pam, who chose this book for us, also hadn't read the book at the time, but it is very interesting how different the experience can be when it's something that the chooser has read before and loved and recommends it because of that. And sometimes people love it or hate it, and you know, either way there are going to be differing opinions about any book. I think what I'm trying to say here is book clubs are great because, I mean, obviously with The Name of the Wind, I am the book club member who did not enjoy the book in that equation, and I don't think it will offend the person who chose it, but I think it is one of their favorite books of all time, so it's just so interesting, isn't it? You learn so much about people, and I think it's really interesting. That's all. As always with my Page Mages spreads, I like to have them tie into the theme somewhat, but also leave enough space that I can decorate them in a way that makes sense for the book. And the sourdough spread just worked out so perfect. I couldn't have planned that one better, and that was completely accidental. So hopefully it goes the same way for The Cat Who Caught a Killer. I have some cat stickers and I'd love to use them. And I just wanted to update a couple of extra things. I really wanted the check and mate sticker to go on the standout book part of my reading stats page from last month, so I printed some extra covers for other things that I might read or might need a second copy of, and that's just kind of how I plan my book covers ahead of time. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but most of the time it's okay. And with that, we are fully set up for the month of May in my reading journal, and all of my April reading has been tracked and logged and reviewed. I have so many questions for you about books. Have you read any of these books that I've talked about today? If so, please tell me your thoughts on them. If there are any that are on your list, tell me about that too. And I really, really want to know what your favorite read for the month of April was, because if it's not something that I have read, then I want to read it too. This video is part of an ongoing series. I make one of these every month, so if you would like to see next month's, or maybe even go back and look at previous months, that's a thing you can do. You can hit subscribe down below and see my videos every week as they come out. And I also have links in the description to my Storygraph and Goodreads in case you want to be friends on either of those platforms too. If you'd like to keep watching, there is a link on the top right corner of the screen right now to my reading journal video from last month, and underneath that is a link to a video showing you how to set up 5 different reading trackers for your own journal in case you want to try something different to mine. Thank you so much for watching, and happy reading! Bye!